Welcome to the Own Your Life podcast, where our goal is to help bring hope, healing, and peace by sharing our experiences and inspiring you to own your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own Your Life podcast. Today is episode number 59, talking all about growing yourself. And I think that this is such an important topic because there is always room to keep growing. And I think that the people, I feel sorry for the people that think that, after school is over, that they're done learning, they're done learning anything new and growing and changing. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that's the case. I think that no matter who you are, wherever you are, how old, how young, it doesn't matter, that you can always grow and change and learn new things. And I think that's really exciting because it can definitely be disheartening if you maybe are past a certain stage in your life and you're thinking, oh, well, I should have made these changes when I was younger and I didn't do that. And now it's too late. I'm too old and I can't do it. And I would say, no, absolutely not. Maybe some physical things, maybe not. Maybe you can't do the same thing. Like you probably can't be an Olympic gymnast if you're 55. That's probably not going to happen. But in terms of growing and changing and learning new things, you can absolutely still do that no matter where you're at. So I feel like it is important to make sure that we aren't giving ourselves or using excuses to get ourselves off the hook from growing and changing, because I feel like there are so many things to learn and see and do in this world. And that would just be really sad to just put yourself in a box and say it's over. This is it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And that's all. And I think that there's so much more for us. And especially if you want it, you can definitely have it. And I think that, especially with the summer, that we can get a little bit lazier with our schedules, with our routines. Maybe, I'm not sure if you have kids or not, but if you do, obviously that's their summer break from school and probably some vacation time, maybe going to the pool, going to the beach, amusement parks, maybe sporting events, things like that. I know Matt and I did, travel baseball with Cameron for a while. So that took up a lot of our summers, and that was something that we all enjoyed to do together. And it can throw off your regular schedule because obviously it's not the norm. So I think that, it's recognizing that a lot of self-awareness goes into this, but realizing how important that you can grow in any season, no matter what you're doing. If you have maybe just a couple minutes a day, or you've got hours, anything like that, that's going to be enough for you to grow and change if you want to. So I think the main thing is you have to be the one to want it. Nobody can force you to change, to grow, to read something, to whatever. You need to want that for yourself. And I think, as part of owning your life, that is a huge thing that we believe in, is growing yourself, is changing, is learning more with time, because that's how we want to, that's what we want to be and who we want to be. We want to be somebody that grows and changes over time and not just stays the same or falls back through our lives. So I think that's something that you have to figure out for yourself, if that's what you want. And I think no matter if you're going through a mountain and everything's amazing, I think the two dangerous places where people stop growing is when you are on a mountain, meaning everything's amazing. Maybe you just got a promotion, you just got a raise, you just got married, maybe you just had a kid, like something pivotal in your life that is just really exciting. I think that's where people can stop growing, because they can think, oh, I've got it, I've reached it. Or maybe you've, achieved something within your work or whatever. You wrote a book, something like that. And you're like, oh, I got this. And then you stop growing. And the other part, I think, is also when you're in a valley and maybe you're not doing so well that you just give up and you're like, oh, I'm just, I can't do it. I'm not good enough or worthy or whatever you're telling yourself. And then now you're not growing there either, because you're thinking, oh, I need to be higher than this. I need to be better than this to be able to grow. And I would argue with both of those, that those are the most dangerous times, and that you still can grow through those no matter what it is. So I think that those two are probably the most important, to make sure that you're still doing something to grow yourself. And a lot of this is very easy. You can do it by maybe reading a book. And I mean like positive personal growth, maybe a leadership book, maybe a spiritual book, something like that, not just a fictional book for entertainment purposes. I think that it is important that we're reading something that is going to grow us and stretch us. Although, reading for entertainment, that's totally fine. Same thing with watching movies, but there's a difference in picking the material that you're going to be reading, something you can learn from, something, maybe it's listening to a podcast, something like this, that's going to help you, grow yourself. I think that that's also important. Or maybe it's writing for you. Maybe you like to write in your journal. Maybe you like to get it all out there. That actually can grow you because it's kind of you working on you. So I think that all those are very, very helpful. Or maybe taking classes somewhere, maybe something that you're really interested in learning how to do, a skill that maybe you don't have that you want to have. Maybe if it's for just recreational purposes or if it's for a job, something like that. That all those ways are ways that you can grow yourself. And I know that John Maxwell always says leaders are readers, and I totally believe that is true. And I also believe that everybody is a leader in some aspect, whether you are leading your children or your spouse or a company or your family, whatever it is, that you are a leader. So it is important to read things. And I think it's important to see other people's perspectives so that we can grow and change and understand people. Because not everybody sees the world through the lens that we do. And we think it's important to, take that into consideration when you are learning things, because you can really learn something from everyone, but you can't learn everything from one person. So I think that's also something that people can get hung up on, like, oh, well, I only want to read this book if so-and-so wrote it, and that's it. And I won't read any other personal growth unless it's by so-and-so. And I think that is really limiting yourself by not expanding your view to maybe somebody else who says a similar message, but it's obviously got a different perspective on it. So I think it's being open-minded, which we talk about a lot as well, is that you are open to growing and changing. And maybe you don't agree with somebody on something, but maybe to see if you can learn something from that. I know there's some podcasts that I've listened to where I like the host, and sometimes they'll have a guest on there that I might not think is that amazing, or maybe I don't agree with them on some things, but I will listen to it just to see. It doesn't change my mind. Obviously, I believe what I believe, and I'm not going to change it on a whim. But by just listening to somebody else, it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. No, that's their perspective. And sometimes it has opened my eyes to other things, like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't see that. So I think that it is important that you are open to maybe reading or listening to something maybe a little bit different, but that is still going to grow you and change you in a positive way. And I feel like at least for me, I've asked myself before, like, how do I even know? How do I know if I'm growing? And a scary thing that you can do, but a very honest thing, is to ask the people around you. Ask them, how have you seen me change in the past, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. The people, maybe it's coworkers that you see every day. Maybe it's your boss. That's probably a really scary question, because maybe you don't want to ask them that. But if they see you on a daily basis, or maybe interact with you on a daily basis, whether it's through Zoom or whatever, that they would be able to notice. It's usually the people on the outside that notice more change in us than we do ourselves, because we're with ourselves all the time, that it is hard to see, am I growing? Am I changing? I don't know. Maybe I don't feel like it. Maybe I've done all this stuff and now I feel like I'm in the same spot. And I would encourage you maybe to ask somebody close to you, how have I grown and changed, and be open to their feedback. And it might not be perfect. And it probably won't be perfect, but just be open to that. And I think that can really help you see ways that maybe you are or are not growing. Also, I feel that journals, like I had talked about before with the power of journaling, and looking back, going back maybe a year, go back to some older journals that you've done and see what you wrote then, and see how do you think now? Do you still think the same? Do you think differently? I think that's very helpful to see the growth that you've had. And obviously reflection, self-awareness, that really helps as well. Behavior and attitude. How are you acting? How is your behavior? And what is your attitude? Do things that used to frustrate you, do they still frustrate you? Because I think that's also a huge way to see if you've grown or not. I know I used to have a lot of road rage myself, and I don't anymore. It's gone. I worked really hard to get rid of that because I don't want anger to be something that is my go-to in life. And I feel like it used to be, and it is not anymore. So when somebody cuts me off or pulls in front of me or tails me or whatever, I don't do what I originally wanted to do, maybe show them a finger or so and yell. That doesn't happen. So I think that for me, I've noticed that's been a big place of growth, is that I don't let the little things like that drive me crazy, because at the end, it's not worth it. At least for me, it's not worth it to stress me out. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to go through that. So I've learned just to let it go and to realize that maybe somebody is going through something that you can't see on the outside and you don't understand. Maybe they're rushing to a hospital. Maybe they've been told that their loved one only has a couple hours to live and they are hurrying to get there to be there. Or maybe they just found out their kid got in a car accident, like something like that, which I know is ironic. You don't want them to be driving recklessly to get there. But however, events like that can do that to us as humans, so that we might not be thinking clearly, but you never know what somebody else is going through. So I think it's important that we recognize that and not just jump to an assumption or a conclusion about somebody, especially somebody we don't know at all. We have no idea. So somebody might have cut you off for a good reason or maybe no good reason at all. And that's just how they drive and what they do. But not letting that bother you and get to you and drive you crazy, I think is really important. At least for me, it's given me a lot of peace by not getting mad at the small things that really don't matter at the end of the day. You're never going to see that person again, most likely. So why would you give them any of your time to be upset, over something that they're not even going to be aware at? So if you're mad and upset about somebody that did that to you, they're never going to know. And it's going to, it might ruin a couple hours of your day, if not the rest of your day. And I just, for me, I don't believe that's worth it. So I think your behavior and your attitude is really, really important. And another thing that's been very powerful, I know for Matt and I, is when we've read a book a second time, and we are note takers, so we've like highlighted and underlined stuff in books that we read. We've been doing that for years. So if I go back and read a book I've already read, I see the previous notes that I've taken, and sometimes I'm like, oh wow, I don't think that way anymore, or oh, I can see how I've changed or grown from that, or put this into action that I wanted to take action on, and then I get more out of the book because I'm going to be usually highlighting and underlining things that I didn't get the first time around. Also, when you see something a second time, you usually pick up on more, especially, if you've watched a movie more than once, that you'll probably notice things that you never noticed the first time you saw it. So I think that that's also important, is when you go back to something like that you can see where the growth is. Like, oh, well, I didn't catch this then because I was just paying attention to like the fundamentals, the basics, and now I can add more layers on top of that. So that's also, a way to tell if you're growing. And before COVID, conferences was a thing. I know people are still doing some conferences now, but maybe it's a virtual conference that you would do instead. That is a great way to grow yourself. Matt and I hopped on the John Maxwell Growth Conference last year's Live to Lead. I believe it's coming up in about 2 months. It's usually in October. And we did the virtual, I think it was all virtual. Maybe it wasn't, but we did the virtual one last year, and that was really cool just to listen to that. Help us expand our growth with, we had a bunch of different speakers on there. So that was really cool. And when you are growing and changing, it is okay to take steps back. I know that a lot of people might think that, oh, well, I feel like I'm backtracking in this area, or I was growing in this area and now it's not going so well. And it's really 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. You're going to feel like you're growing and changing, and then something's going to happen. You're going to feel like you're downsliding. And then you just got to keep picking up and going on. I think that that's the main thing, is to never give up, to keep going. And it doesn't have to be fast. None of this has to be turned around the next day. It's okay to take your time. And you don't have to, shift everything overnight. So that is one important thing, that I know that I am a very fast-paced person, but I need to be okay with the fact that I may not be growing as fast as I would like to, but I'm still growing, and I'm still putting one foot in front of the other. Whether I feel like it or not, I'm still going to do that, because I know at the end of the day that I want to be somebody who does grow and change. I don't want to look back 5-10 years from now and think, wow, I'm still in the same spot. I never want that to be the case. And I would hope for you that you don't want that to be the case either. And sometimes when you see somebody, maybe it's a family member that you haven't seen in years, and they say, wow, you've really changed. For me, I take that as a compliment, because I do not want to be the same Ashley that you saw 5 years ago. I want to be different. I want to be better. I want to be more polite, less angry, more excited about life and positive, and that I've learned more and grown from that. That's how I want to be. I do not want to be the same person that I was. So when I hear that, as long as they're not being I mean, I guess I'm a little cheeky myself. So I would just take that if they're being sarcastic. I would just take and be like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Because that's who I want to be at the end of the day, that I want to be that person that is working towards something and growing myself and trying to achieve my goals instead of just staying in the same place or going backwards. Because I do feel like if you're not moving forward, you are moving backwards. There is really no way to stay the same permanently, because so many things are changing around us that if we aren't trying to grow and change with that we will be left behind. So I do think that's important, and it is going to feel like a struggle. There are going to be days that you don't want to. You don't want to do it. You don't want to read the book. You don't want to listen to the podcast. You don't want to go to church. You don't want to whatever it is. But I think overriding that feeling and just doing it anyways is what separates people that grow themselves from people who don't. And like even this morning, I wasn't that excited to hurry up and get out of bed and get ready and go to church, but I did it. I did it anyways, and I was so happy that I did, because the message was amazing, and it usually is every time. So that's not going to make me go there or not, but I feel like just doing the action is the big step. And I was very happy that I was there, and that I didn't just resort to maybe sitting on the couch and watching it online when it's, less than 10 minutes from my house. So I do think that's important, that when you don't feel like it, that is when you need to lean in harder and just do it. Maybe you read one page, maybe you read one paragraph of a book, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's about as much as you can handle. So have grace with yourself and go at the pace that is comfortable for you. Now, just don't be lazy with it though, and say, oh, well, Ashley had mentioned just read a paragraph and I'm good. No, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, like, if you are going through a really, really hard time right now, that maybe that is all you can handle, and go with that. But maybe you can handle reading half a book in a day. I don't know. Some people do that. And if that's you, then great. I hope that you're learning something out of it, because I know for me, I used to just read books kind of like, oh, how fast can I read this book? And I really wasn't getting much out of it. And I think when I slowed down, which was hard for me to slow it down, but I did, and made sure that I was actually learning and growing from what I was reading, and not just trying to read a certain number of books in a certain number of time, because at the end of the day, that didn't really help me, as if I spent way more time on fewer books and actually applied them to my life. I think that is definitely going to have more of an impact for you. And it is important to, monitor what is it that you're reading, what is it that you're listening to. Like I said earlier, make sure it's positive. Make sure it's something that's growing and changing you in a positive way. Obviously, we can grow and change in negative ways too. And I think it's being very aware of that, very mindful of what it is that you are feeding yourself, because you're literally feeding your brain this information. And your brain, it has neural pathways that are forming based off of this information that you are reading and speaking to yourself, that the more you read and speak and whatever it is of that information, the more it's going to be hardwired into your brain. So if it's negative, it's going to be negative. And if it's positive, it's going to have positive, effects on you. So that's important as well, just to monitor what is the content of what I'm feeding myself, with all the materials, with all the podcasts and all the books and movies and anything like that. And if you don't like where you're at right now, just know that you can change that. I think that is huge, because I used to think that how I thought or behaviors and things like that, like, oh, this is just me, I'm just set, or using that excuse like, oh, no, that's just how I am. I think that can get really, really dangerous, because we don't have to be that way. If you don't like something that you do, a behavior, an attitude, a thought, you can change that. So I want to encourage you today to keep growing yourself. If you're not growing yourself already, go for it. Try it. Maybe listen to something positive. Maybe that's easier for you than a book. Maybe you're always on the go, and that's more resourceful for you. So I would encourage you to do that. And the great thing about a lot of it is podcasts are free, and a lot of books online are free too. So it's not like you have to worry about, oh, do I need to spend a lot of money on this? But I will tell you that the money you do spend on investing in yourself is definitely money well spent, and you're not going to regret it. So if you want to go to a conference or buy a bunch of books or whatever it is, I would encourage you that, your money is not going to be going to waste if you are going to use that information, apply it in your life so that you can grow and change and become the person that you want to be and to own your life. So with that, I hope this was a helpful message for all of you. Please share it. Please subscribe. Please rate and review us. And until next time, own your life, because your life is your responsibility. Thank you all for listening. If this added value to you, please click subscribe and rate and review us. You can also find us at Own Your Life Co. on Instagram and Facebook and ownyourlifeco.com. And as always, own your life, because your life is your responsibility.